Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we're going to be talking about the popular topic that is what is going on with freaking book reviews. And I feel like the politics of book reviews at this point, because we're not just going to be talking about the Kate, whatever her name is, situation. We're going to be talking about many more situations than that. I want to present to you kind of the different scenarios that I've seen to actually have a discussion about the way that book reviews are being weaponized both by readers and by writers, and the pressure that I think is also being put on people. Like, they're cracking and people are making really bad decisions, but I don't think that it is all that straightforward. And I think that we're seeing repetition of behaviors for a reason. And so maybe instead of just jumping on the next drama, we should actually talk about what it is we're seeing. So I'm going to present to you a couple different scenarios that I've seen over the last couple of years, and some of them are just over the last couple of months. And then I would love to hear your thoughts on how things are playing out, how things have played out, behavior. Why do you think this is happening? But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on this channel, check out the links down in the description below. There are two ways to be featured. Number one way to be featured is through Lemoy, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt, you write a short story using that prompt, and the first Monday video of the month is always reading some of those prompts to bask in the creativity of the people who submitted. Even if you're not normally a creative person, just give it a try. It's not serious, and the whole goal is just to have a good time, try out new things, maybe start a new story if you've been stuck. It's just good. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out. If you submit your first chapter and your cover to the feature, they'll be read here on the channel at a random interval. I just pick from the pile randomly, and hopefully that'll help more readers find your work. I know that whenever I read something in there that specifically speaks to stuff that I like, I go and just buy it, and they eventually show up here on the channel when I get the chance to read and review them. And the third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, judge me. Leave me your hate mail. The links are down in the description below. You can get them at any of your favorite places to get books, including the library upon request. Before we get into the topic of the day, though, a couple of things. I mean, number one, this beautiful handmade knife sent by the very own Hole Daddy. I am now properly protected in my under the bridge area. I can also now open more mail. Teleshop USA by Stash Cairo says, in the summer of 1987, Robert Mackenzie arrives at Teleshop USA Oklahoma City studio. He doesn't know it, but this moment will change his life forever. Broke, desperate, and alone, he's a 25-year-old high school dropout. His only goal to secure a position as Teleshop's newest show host. Robert's a decade past school, and his careers haven't been fountains of success. The one constant in his life is his incessant spiel of Dealmaker Dave. The show host's voice sounds from the television at every motel and furnished room he's stayed. No matter how alone, no matter where situated, Teleshop and the Deal Maker are always there. The products don't matter. TV shopping has raised the selling of tchotchkes to high art. Without a background in broadcasting or sales, Robert hurls himself into the interview. After all, compared to working graveyard as a security guard, how much worse can life get? That's a good question. Yasmin Dubai, Teleshop's beautiful director of talent, conducts his pre-interview tour. She's a Wharton MBA and way out of his league. Robert is smitten the moment that they meet. Dealmaker Dave Leonard is the network's top host. He barrels about like a bull in a china shop. Can Robert hang on to his coattails long enough to learn his trade? The Dragon Lady is Teleshop's other host. She takes a look at Robert and knows that he's a threat. She must stop him at all costs. Laid bare are the whys and the wherefores of home shopping's early days. The hustle, the bustle, the lies, and even the odd truth. Who finds love? Who lives? Who dies? Pick up the phone and call now. Sounds like a lot of fun. I'll be adding to my reading list. Just give me time to finish my current books. I'm gonna aim for this for January or February. I'm trying to finish the books that I have right now. And all of them are chonkers. There's one of them that is like 1,000 pages. The other two are like 700, 400, 400. They're long. I've just got some chonkers. So this is going on my immediate over there with the Chinese lore. So thank you so much for this, and I hope to get to review it for you. I hope to get to read it and talk about it soon. With that said, let's get into this. So obviously I'm so like minutely invested in this. I don't even remember the name of the chick that is currently in the hot seat for having review bombed somebody. There were a couple of people that brought it to attention, like as it was just hitting, and then a couple more emails and messages about it the following days, and people that I know or that I watch talking about it. And so it became a big enough thing. If you want all of the super details on the back of that, there are a couple of other people who have already covered the full story, so I'm going to bring an article forward to kind of give the synopsis of the story and then get into the other ones, because we're doing a comparison here. Sci-fi writer who got caught review bombing her rival's authors fesses up, loses a book deal. An investigation that began on Book Talk has ended with an author confessing and losing her book deal. Author Kate Corain issued a lengthy apology on Tuesday in which she admitted to review bombing or leaving negative reviews under fake accounts, admitted to review bombing her fellow authors, and that is leaving negative reviews on fake accounts. Corain's debut novel, A Crown of Starlight, was set to be published by Del Rey Publishing in 2024, but the company said Tuesday that it has no plans to pursue any other works under that contract. According to her statement on Twitter, Corain logged onto at least 8 different Goodreads profiles on December 2nd and boosted the rating of my book, bombed the ratings of several fellow debut authors, and left reviews that ranged from kind of mean to downright abusive. Canadian author Ziran J. Zhao posted a Google document titled Review Bomb Receipts with screenshots of the alleged reviews, and chaos ensued in the book communities of X and TikTok. I can't believe Del Rey spent $500,000 on this when they could have spent $500,000 on anything else. Sorry, not sorry, one of the fake reviews said. Corain named 4 authors she targeted, 2 of which were under the same publisher, but said, "It's possible that there are a couple other authors. I felt no ill will towards any of them. It was just my fear about how my book would be received running out of control," Corain said in her statement. Business Insider has reached out to Del Rey and representatives for Corain, along with the authors that she named in her statement, for additional comment. Corain attributed the web of fake critics to psychological breakdown brought on by poor mental health, addiction, and new medication in her statement. The author has since been dropped by her literary agent, Becca Potus, and a book subscription service, Illuminate Crate, said A Crown of Starlight would no longer be included in the May 2024 box. Anthony Baptiste, one of the authors who was affected, says that she was reviewed by at least 6 fake Goodreads accounts. Baptiste wrote on Twitter on the December 12th. "I've spent days defending my name and reputation while Kate had the privilege to hide." You don't have to. That's one of the things. It's like, it always feels like this, and sometimes, you do want to make a response, but I generally try to think if it would be expedient to do anything, and usually if people are angry at you, they're not going to listen, and you kind of just wait for it to go away. But do you have to? Does it really matter? If somebody is just saying this is trash, does it really matter? Because it's going to bounce back. Anyway, review bombing isn't unique to Goodreads. It's also a problem in review platforms like Rotten Tomatoes and Yelp. However, the publishing industry's struggles with the practice are particularly well documented. Some authors have postponed or outright canceled their book releases over negative reviews on Goodreads. Sometimes it just happens. And you do what you got to do. You do what is best for you. And some people just don't and can't deal with the responses to their books that aren't even responses to their books. They're just angry people, and that's what some of this stuff is. Like, you'll see. At least that's my opinion. And it can be very hard to navigate and very hard to deal with. I know that I go through my own bouts of I am worthless, I'm a failure, everything that I do is wrong, I'm wasting all of my time. I go through it all the time. And then my choices are, am I going to stop writing? Well, I really can't. I just play video games and I get character ideas, I get story ideas. There's no stopping it. So then it's just, am I going to write in private or am I going to write in public? Or eventually, share stuff. And then I decide, my characters, I love them enough, my stories, I love them enough that I think they're worth sharing. And I want to share the joy that I've had and I've found, and the encouragement and the adventure that I've found in my characters with other people that would like to experience it. So that's eventually where I go. but it's not easy. And so it gets very personal very fast. Even being in critique groups, I've been in critique groups and I've known friends in critique groups, even in graduate school, where we're there literally to be critiqued. And so you give somebody an honest critique of their 15 to 20 pages that they submitted to the group to be critiqued, and then the other people take it personally that you critique their book, and then they just rip you a new one because they don't like that you critique their book. I've had people come straight up to me and say, hey, will you critique this? And even if I just implicate that I have maybe even grammar things to correct on or to make suggestions on, not even corrections, suggestions, there's a meltdown because they're not expecting even just base feedback. So it happens all the time. It's so personal. Every little thing makes you feel like a failure, and I understand that. It's a coping thing to learn how to take that. But you don't have to pull it because some people don't like it. Some people are just never going to like it, and you know what? I accept that the majority of people are just never going to like me, and that's how I try to deal with it. But as this was going on, I felt like I was having deja vu because I saw so many people talking about this, and there's also people saying how Goodreads needs to do a better job at curating or stopping this from happening on Goodreads. And it's just, one of my questions is, how would you do that? Because I've also seen plenty of authors who don't believe that a 1-star review or a 2-star review is done in good faith. I see some that say they do not think that you should get to leave a review of any kind if you put DNF in there, which is going to leave people to not say that they DNF'd a book. There are so many different ways in which an author may try to invalidate a review so that a bad review could be deleted when it's completely valid. But then there are also ways in which reviews are used specifically on Goodreads that it's more like a coping mechanism or it's like a venting mechanism, because maybe it's just me, but Goodreads is more a social media website than a website that I would take seriously for reviews. Like, yeah, there are serious reviewers on there, but it's also a social website. And so I have noticed that people are more likely to vent their feelings, vent their responses, vent personal things in the comments on there. I mean, one of my books received a comment that wasn't even at me. It was ranting about how booktubers and author tubers are scam artists for offering classes and paid services, which I don't and have never offered. But they just went off to have that. So it's just kind of a venting space in some cases where people possibly want to be heard because they have something in common with other people. And I have a review that shows that in very simplistic ways, or in a very simplistic way that I'm going to bring up later, because would you delete that? And then it really takes certain people that then go onto Amazon to then post Amazon reviews, which is why there are usually fewer Amazon reviews than Goodreads reviews, because Goodreads is more people post there. They just do. But I think the fact that it's a social media website and people kind of just post socially and not seriously, even when it's just like ranting and screaming, it's kind of like a blog. And so it can't really be taken as seriously. Anyway, so this thing with Kate was happening, and I was like, this feels so familiar, because they also were going on about how it's specifically bigotry because she was targeting non-white other authors, and I have no idea if that's because the other authors who were putting their stuff out were actually also her peers, so that's why they were targeted, or if it had anything to do with race. I tend to think that it was the option of they all had similar ideas, because you have the push in the writing community and the publishing community to publish more diverse authors. So then your peers are going to end up being more mixed. And so then what's going to happen if you have this attitude anyway? That's going to happen. So I don't have any evidence for anything other than insecurity pushing these things. Anyway, this reminded me of this other thing that happened, and apparently it happened not even a month ago, where Mike Kapuri posted, "Jealousy is an ugly color, young lady. I suspect that beneath the veneer of political outrage is one writer being envious of another more successful one. Also, I don't know how to tell you this, but a decade of crazy people making demands on the internet doesn't constitute consent. Nobody agreed to that shit, in other words. Behold, in all of its glory, the end state of the social justice person in publishing. A Zoomer who is a published author and Wellesley student Anne Zhao lecturing another author and Wellesley alum Kate Broad that she shouldn't have written her novel Greenwich about power, privilege, desire, race, class, guilt, and girlhood because the description mentions a black character, Kate is white. That's against the rules of Calvin Ball that we allegedly agreed to, you see. Anne, meanwhile, has her own novel, Dear Wendy. You can't accuse her of trying to appropriate anyone else's culture or identity because it seems to be a straight-up self-insert fiction. It's about, get this, young women who are students at Wellesley College. Nearly every author self-inserts at this point, usually in their first novel. In many cases, the avatar character is doing things that the author doesn't get to do, not, you know, just living the author's life. I know I'm not the intended audience here, but maybe show a little more creativity and character development. Anyway, there are two things that make this nonsense funny. One is that both women probably share much of the same politics and worldview, and both have an interest in writing. If Anne was smart, instead of doing a public call out of Kate, she'd be reaching out to her for advice. Miss Broad is an experienced author and editor with knowledge of the publishing industry. The second thing, the thing that really makes it more funny than anything else, is the audacity of any of these people to be going on about privilege and class. Wellesley College is an elite private women's school with $2.85 billion endowments. It costs over $88,000 a year to attend. The median household income of Wellesley, Massachusetts, is roughly $250,000. These are some of the most privileged people ever to live. It's life on easy mode, as the kids say. This is the sort of thing that you worry about when you don't have any real problems. It's absurd. Write the characters that you want, just make them believable and interesting. Tell the stories that you want, just make it engaging. Enough of this pointless trifle. So, back in November, because we got the date right here, you had Anne Zhao, who went after Kate Broad for writing a story. And Anne Zhao has her book coming out April 2024. In my own novel, I strive to make Wellesley College a radically accepting and subversive environment that it's been for me, but this announcement is an unfortunate reminder that not the entire college community holds the same values I do. And it was literally about Kate talking about getting a publishing deal. Also, that post is not there anymore, as is typical. This stuff blows up. People lose their jobs over it, lose their reputations, lose friendships, and then it's over and everybody deletes all of the evidence. It happens a lot. As Mike Chen says here, I'm playing catch-up on book drama, but holy crap, Goodreads is really not important enough to torpedo your debut. Community, however, is important enough over the long term, and that should be your priority. True. So, like, don't freaking worry, and I say this now, watch, and I'll just, you know, end up with a 1 star, and you know what? 1 star just means that I'm the best. That's how it's gonna be. We're flipping that switch. But Goodreads is not going to be the thing that ends you unless you end up responding to it and you quit, and that's the end of it. But it's really not that big a deal. So, earlier I mentioned a book that received some review bombing, some targeted, what looks like targeted. I'm going to leave it up to you guys because this is supposition. This is my looking at it. But last year, I read both The Men by Sandra Newman and Manhunt by Gretchen Felker-Martin because they were both gender apocalypse and they both had issues at the time, and the rating for this book was actually way lower than 2.94. It has recovered somewhat from when it released, but it did not recover totally. So last year when I read The Men, this is more what it looked like, where there were just way more 1 stars than anything. And my guess for that is because Gretchen Felker-Martin actually commented on this book. Now, that's not to say that authors can't have opinions and can't talk about books. What this specifically looked like to me, and you let me know, especially if you go investigate it yourself, they both wrote to gender apocalypses. Gretchen Felker-Martin wrote the book Manhunt, where all of the men turned into roaming, like, zombies that liked to rape women, and they had basically barbed dicks, and they would, like, impregnate them with zombie babies that would eat their way out of women, like, very violent for women, with the main bad guys of that book being the TERFs, because the main characters of that book were 2 trans women and a trans man, and then there were groups of different women's settlements that they were getting along with, so you had all of that situation going on. But just as much, if not more so, than the brain-dead zombie men as the villains, as the antagonists. It was actually the TERFs that were the antagonists, not the zombie men. The zombie men were more about kink, if I'm honest. But so then in Sandra Newman's book, you have one day the main character wakes up and all of the men are gone. They're just mysteriously gone. They're then seen on this television show channel where they're kind of in this weird dimension, and the women just have to figure out how to function as a society without men. The thing that these reviews point out is that along with all of the men, the trans women were also taken away with the men. And that's because whatever spectral thing that happened in the story, whatever magnificent magical thing sucked up anybody with an XY chromosome, which means even the trans men were left, which means the trans men were left behind and the trans women were taken. And there was even a point in the book where some of the women were looking at the screen and saw the trans women in the screen with all of the men, and they were like, wow, that's not fair because trans women are women. So they recognize in the story the very viewpoints that are then dragged in all of these reviews that just came in sweeping to call Sandra Newman a transphobe. And that's what it is. It's especially interesting that you look at this, and a lot of these came specifically after Gretchen posted, and they all say transphobic. Many of them also have less than 5 reviews to their name if they are 1 stars. And then it looks like at some point, Sandra Newman may have responded to this review bombing happening to her book, which that means that she felt like she was a victim to this review bombing and being personally kind of dragged with claims of transphobia, where she says that's not what is in this book. You're apparently not allowed to even say anything if you were being defamed, if you were being libeled, nothing if they attach it to a book, which I've talked about previously before, where people end up using book reviews as a shield to make personal attacks on an author and then say, hey, whoa, 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 you're not allowed to defend yourself, because if you do, you're coming into reader spaces. I think if you're talking about the book, okay. But if you start talking about the author, I think you start crossing some boundaries. Anyway, so on here it goes, implying trans people criticizing your book as pigeons playing chess who kick over the pieces, shit on the board, and then strut around as if they won is one way to forever ensure people definitely don't read your book. I've seen weeks worth of bigoted tweets protecting unscientific and lazy plots in this book. It's a magical book. They literally just disappear. And are we really gonna go there? Are we really gonna go on the science behind this? Because if you look at freaking Manhunt, you have them eating balls so they can maintain their estrogen levels so they don't turn into brain-rotted zombie monsters that just want to rape all the women? Like, is that really where we're gonna go? If you wake up randomly and all of the men are just magically gone in this alternate dimension, I don't think that we're dealing with science, so it doesn't even matter. But still, that takes us to, well, your personal beliefs don't match with me. And you continue to make it personal to try to make it so that your opinions are elevated as opposed to talking about the book by stating your demographics and why yours are more important. Here, did you know that chromosomes are a very complicated topic? No, neither did the author, but still decided to write an entire transphobic book about it. More post on transphobia. Please, can we stop with the trans misogyny and transphobia? Like, none of this is about the actual book, which actually pissed me off the most, because then I ended up reading this book, and you know what pissed me off? Spoiler alert, skip forward like 10 seconds if you don't want to hear what the freaking spoiler of this book is. She wakes up from a freaking dream at the end, and then she just, okay, I'm gonna dump my husband and my child because I just was in a lesbianic relationship in this dream world with the girl that I went to college with and fell in love with at the college. The girl at the college was a cop killer, and just like a cop-killing communist lady, a cop-killing communist girl boss that I want to be in love with now, and I need to go check on her. So wake up from a dream and just dump your entire life. Way to just tell me I wasted my life because everything was just fake. Like, waking up from a dream, you have to do something really, really special to make that ending not suck. Anyway, so as you can see, that's why I'm suspicious of the reviews here, and that this got review bombed because it was a competing thing with the gender apocalypse. I don't think that they were actually competitors, because I don't think that the two books, having read both of them, they're nothing alike. They're just both all of the men disappear or something happens to the men. But they're so completely different. That goes on top with the idea that there is plenty of space out there for books with similar concepts, or books that take the same idea and then do it differently, or use the same tropes, because that's what publishers are looking for constantly, is they want to see the same idea used again and again and again if it's popular, if it's selling, if they're trying to feed that thing. I've noticed that there are quite a few books right now doing the send away camps or the conversion therapy camps. Gretchen is doing a conversion therapy camp book next year. Three Rivers was a therapy camp, send away camp book, which is going to be another book mentioned on this. Chuck Tingle just did a conversion therapy book. I've seen at least 2 other YA horror books that were conversion therapy books that came out this year. So that's also a trend. But when people are looking for that thing, then publishers are usually pushing that thing. And personally, I think that's something that is partially behind this behavior of what incentivized Kate and made Kate feel like she needed to do this, if we go with her being fearful, is if everybody is doing, you know, Faye, Cinderella, Faye, Beauty and the Beast retellings that have all of the fated mate, that have all of the, you know, the ball, that have the masquerade, that have all of very similar beats and very similar storylines, then you want to make yours stand out. If you have like 20 peers that year that are all doing Persephone, Hades retellings, and you've got very similar beats, then you're going to want to make yourself stand out because you just followed the path. And so you want to make your book special above theirs. And I think this eventually incentivizes this review bombing of other people because you want your book to stand above your peers instead of thinking about your book and how you value your characters. Like, my stories are my stories, and you can find similarities in them along with other things. I don't, because I just wrote them on their own. But I value my characters and my storylines and the plots of those stories for who they are, without caring about anybody else. I mean, I feel like that's especially important with the Easties, since they were very specifically inspired by a video game series, and then they kind of divulged into their very own thing. But you can find the parallels and you can find the homages in that. And that doesn't make it any weaker or any worse. You got to have confidence to stand on your own writing. And I think that publishers at this point are pushing books out possibly a little too fast, especially if they are for the trends and for the tropes. If you look at the Fourth Wing, it came out in May of this year. And then the second book in the Fourth Wing series, the Iron Flame, 800 pages about. And it came out less than 6 months later. That is not normal for traditional publishing. So what is happening there? But I think the more that you incentivize like this kind of content farming and chasing the trends and pushing stuff out as fast as you can while it's hot and you're in that niche, it's going to incentivize this competition with your peers because you basically are doing the same thing and people are so focused on being successful as opposed to what it is that they have that is special, that they've crafted, that they care about. Yeah, I know that's not too business-minded, but I'm trying to kind of think about why is this happening so much more, because this happened last year. So look at the situation with Gretchen and tell me if you see what I see when I'm looking at this, because I'm an idiot. There's not much more I could tell you about that. And then you go over here. So reviews are not just weaponized by authors trying to take out the competition. You've also got stuff here like writer Lauren Hugh who targeted Goodreads reviewer. This happened in 2021. After a deep dive into Hugh's tweets, I think it all started with a 4-star review on Goodreads, an Amazon-owned social media platform for authors and reviewers. Glad to see that most Goodreads assholes still giving 4-star reviews to show that they're super tough reviewers who need to like fall in love, you know? Anyway, no one likes you, Hugh tweeted, then screenshotted 2 reviews on her book where users Debbie and Hannah who debated whether they should round a 4.5 review up or down. Pretty benign stuff. I'm not entirely sure what the problem is with 4 stars, but let's leave that aside. Hugh continued, all these writers are scared to even like that tweet. I see you. I will hate them out loud for you, and I know that they're scary as shit, fucking nerds on a power trip. You forgot to assign homework, motherfuckers. She caught some heat, and the angry Twitter mobs started leaving 1-star reviews on her debut. Leaving isn't the hardest thing, which was released April 13th. Most of the reviews are short and sweet, something like did not read 1 star, but some reviews got into it. If you're an author and you think that you can't handle criticism or negative thoughts about your book, then maybe you shouldn't, I don't know, publish a book. Just a thought, wrote one reviewer named Elena. As of writing this, Hugh's memoir has an average rating of 1.85 stars. Let's see if that recovered, shall we? I mean, it's a 3.36, so she got through it. But so this is a similar situation, isn't it? I mean, it's not an author putting on sock accounts and trying to ruin other people, or it's not somebody like Gretchen over here who went on to somebody else's book in the same genre and just, and then all of these reviews that followed after Gretchen. some of them on the same day. But this is reviewers then, or readers, weaponizing the reviews back at the author. So where is the line for that is what I'm wondering. If you're going to criticize this person for review bombing people to ruin their careers, if we're going to criticize this person for trying to destroy somebody's career, if we're going to criticize anybody for weaponizing, specifically authors, if we're going to criticize authors for weaponizing reviews to ruin somebody's career, because that's not an appropriate use of book reviews and star ratings, is this also not appropriate? Where you're then going, well, I don't like your attitude, 1 star. And this is what takes me back to Goodreads is a social media website. It's more about discussion than being anything serious. And so, like, I think that's a hard place to sort of navigate, because you can see the discussions happening. And it's kind of like, obviously, the author knows that she can't respond to anything on Twitter, or she knows that she can't respond to anything on Goodreads, so she goes to her Twitter to complain. But then the people on Twitter don't like what she says and then takes it back to Goodreads, because Goodreads is theoretically a safe place to attack an author because an author's not supposed to attack, right? So, like, we've kind of got, that's what the situation feels like to me. And I'm not saying that that is how the situation is, but I'm trying to understand the dynamic that is set up between these two groups of people through these two different websites, because clearly authors and reviewers are conversing from different websites and then responding in different places in different ways. And then, you know, when you have situations like the Kate Corain thing come up, then people go, we need Goodreads to do something about this. But that would also mean that you would not be able to critique or star review somebody if you didn't like their behavior, because then that would cross the line too, wouldn't it? And then a lot of the time this turns into harassment of the author. So maybe you don't like their opinion, you don't like the way that they responded to something, you don't like their behavior, you don't like the things that you've read about them in the news maybe, or some of the things that they've said on Twitter because you think that it's just gross, so you 1-starred their book and then moved on. Okay, fine, whatever. Then you got people fighting with the author then on Twitter, to the point of being blocked. Now, do authors have the right to block if they don't want to listen? This reminds me of the situation a couple of months ago now that I covered, where the guy just didn't want to see the 1-star review of his book, so he blocked the account that was retweeting it, because that was the guy's blog. And then somebody made a big deal about it and chased him off of Twitter because the author, just didn't want to look at the 1-star review. No author has to look at a 1-star review. No author has to be involved in conversing with anybody. Nor does anybody who converses at or about an author have to respond to the author. But there's some point in here where people think that it is okay to harass. So Bad Writing Take says, 49 minutes after posting our first tweet about Lauren Ho, we discovered that she had blocked this account. At the time, that tweet had 2 likes and 1 reply and no retweets, which suggests that Lauren is still angrily name-searching herself. Update: Lauren Ho is apparently still name-searching herself on Twitter. Please be aware that if you include Lauren Ho's name in a tweet, Lauren Ho will absolutely, definitely read it. Lauren Ho is still going. She has a simple message for those who have found her behavior towards others unpleasant. But then it is never unpleasant when other people harass other people. That is not the only case of that. Earlier this year, we had publisher drops author after TikTok backlash and Goodreads review bombing. So while Laura Ho had actually been pretty brash in the way that she spoke, then you had Sarah Sarek. Commercial producer Sarah Susek's debut novel, 3 Rivers, a work of young adult fiction, was slated for publication on September 12th of this year. Its former publisher, Spark Press, described it in a logline. Spark Press site noted that the book had already been optioned, with production scheduled to begin later this year. The novel is somewhat autobiographical. Stusek describes undergoing a similar ordeal to the protagonist. The producer, who goes by Sarah Schutz on TikTok, posted a video on the anniversary of her orchestrated abduction, detailing how 2 strangers appeared in her childhood bedroom and spirited her away in the middle of the night at age 17. According to her website, Sustek worked on A Veep and House of Cards. The controversy began over the weekend when Goodreads user Carly Karapas an event planner at a nursing home in Massachusetts who graduated from Pace University last year, posted a positive, why did we need all of that information? Posted a positive review on an advanced copy of the book. It was the first book that she had gotten early, she said. The initial version of her review praised Three Rivers as a really great first novel, but said that the ending was kind of predictable, hence the near perfect score. This was a really good first novel. Stella's expression was obviously based on a true story of the author, and I loved how intricate the details about how Stella was were. The ending was kind of predictable, but other than that, it was incredible. But a Tuesday update to her comment indicated the reviewer's opinion on Sue Stook's Dune Stoward. Edit, the author is now attacking me on TikTok for not giving her a 5-star review. It was a 4, cry face. Giving her a 1-star just for the attitude. I didn't think that the book was bad, but her attitude certainly is. So, like, you can opine on somebody's attitude, but then it kind of just, it dirties the water in what exactly this website is for. And if you're going to say, well, we can just talk about anything on this website, then okay, don't take them seriously, because everybody is just, it's a social media website. It's not a serious review website. But also, I think some people tend to talk past each other and don't really understand each other's humor. So that happens too. Anyway, so you've got that. And eventually in the story, I'll link this in the description below. I don't want to go through it all again because I went through it before. But eventually this author, you know, did TikToks and she was saying that she was joking. And it's going to be up to you whether or not you believe that she was just being a stingy joker, or if she was actually being mean and trying to threaten people and then trying to walk it back. That's all up to you. But so you have these moments of where authors are responding to things that they shouldn't respond. You even have a more famous case here from June of 2015 that started with, this was just so unnecessary, so unnecessarily wordy and pretentious. I just did not enjoy it at all, which makes me sad because the summary says that it's for fans of Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, and World of Warcraft. I would honestly be sketchy of anything that uses like all big names. AKA 3 of my favorite things. So how did I loathe it so entirely from page 1? I don't know. And this actually turned into the author kind of, if you read the whole thing about Dylan Sakosio and this, it turns into you're trying to help human traffickers, I'm trying to do good, you're helping the devil by 1-starring my book, and obviously his book never recovered from that. It just got notorious for the way that he had responded to it, and people just wanted to respond back to it. I think Empress Teresa got the same treatment where Norman Boutine was responding to people. I don't know, because I only found that book like a year or 2 ago, so I missed all of the drama. I typically miss the drama. So you've got situations where people are having conversation, where authors are responding where they shouldn't, and then the book reviews are actually more about the author than they are about the book, or the books entirely are taken away like they were for Three Rivers. So, like, is there really that much of a difference between weaponizing book reviews like this and weaponizing book reviews like this, except one is by authors and one is by reviewers? Because it's still to maliciously take out either somebody you don't like or competition. But then let's take it to another place of how book reviews are weaponized. The Crystal Keepers by J.M. Arlen. So I don't know the full background on this, but you can go to Reads with Rachel's page to see the fight that she had with this author. Because what happened here is that I think he posted on Reddit trying to get attention for his book. He got attention for his book. The person that read his book and gave him a review didn't like it, gave a bad review. He responded to that review. Somehow Reads with Rachel got involved, like saw what was going on, reported on it. Then he responded to that because he was watching where his name came up. And then she did like 3 videos on him and all of that drama going on. This author was harassed on his page, on his social media website, who knows where else he was harassed, to the point that now his social media has been deleted. I don't know if he is still writing, I don't know if he is doing anything, but all of his stuff was deleted and he was review bombed by somebody who has around 100,000 subscribers, and he clearly has no platform. Now, is that an abuse of power? Is that an abuse of this author? Is that an abuse of the star system here? How is that any different than if this person is abusing her power to go after people who are her competition? I mean, Rachel isn't in competition with this guy, but is there a point where authors are victims to the reviewers and the reviewers are weaponizing their platform and their abilities, and then authors are supposed to not say anything or not do anything about it, or for fear of having that person's much larger platform splash into them and destroy them, because we've seen it again and again and again, especially if you are alone. Did this person respond appropriately to what was happening? Probably not. Was it worth trying to destroy them entirely over it, to destroy their art for it? I don't think so. I think you could say your piece and then move on. But you know, let me know what you think. What is the line? And then again, this then turns into just personal expression. So you can't really tell anybody what to do, and I'm not even going to try. I just think that it's kind of silly. I think it's kind of over the top. And then there's just this back and forth of, well, we need to control it so authors can't do this to other people, but there's nothing in line for whether or not reviewers are allowed to do this. And then you've got so many different types of reviews that go in there. Some of them are conversations, some of them are critiques of the author, some of them people claim are bad faith, but you would only know that they are bad faith reviewers if you were involved in the drama. And then you could just start tagging it every time you get a 1-star review and say that, oh, that's just a hater that just wants to ruin my career. Because I've seen that too. If you're not in those circles of the drama, there's no way that you can tell that person's 1-star review being legitimate versus them just saying, oh no, that's a problem child who just wants to ruin my life. Another example that is fairly big and used a lot on YouTube. I don't know anything about, I don't know the truth of the details in this. There are just the rumors, and that's all that exists, and it should really just be let go, because who the frick knows and who the frick cares. But a couple of years ago, when the Cyborg Tinkerer was kind of, people were reading it and its rating was going down, it suddenly got an injection of a bunch of 5-star, 4-star reviews all at once. And so then people accused Meg of purchasing 5-star reviews. Who knows? There's no proof of anything anywhere. It doesn't really matter. And so then in response to that injection and the claims that she was buying reviews, people then started posting 1-star reviews to call her a liar and to call the book fake and to call the reviews fake. So then you just got this war using the star ratings, which again, it's not about the book then. What are we doing? I don't know. But it's one of the reasons that star ratings really don't matter to me. It doesn't tell me whether or not I'm going to enjoy a book. And honestly, if I enjoyed Empress Teresa, despite its rating and what people think of it, the same with Model Land. I know what I like, and I know that I'm just having fun. So book rating doesn't mean anything to me. But so then book reviews and star ratings can be done for personal reason, for conversation, not because of the book, but in order to make accusations against people. See, okay, this review is not based entirely on the book. Thankfully, I only read the first few pages that were available for free downloading. So then it's more of a, this guy, and there are plenty more like it, is more of a response to their critique, is more of a critique of the creator from a different platform. In the same way that I got one that was about, oh, I'm tired of YouTubers selling things. I'm tired of YouTubers selling classes and services when I don't and never have sold classes or services. So then it just becomes a place to bleh stuff. But then finally, as another way of expression, because it doesn't even have to be personal, it doesn't even have to do anything with the book, you've got something like this, where they are 1-star review, didn't read it, but this bitch that I have a beef with adores this book, so 1 star. Would you be like, okay, we need to scrub the website of all of that too. No more personal expression in any sort of way. Look, I think the bottom line for me is that all of this is really petty. Book reviews are not that serious. We like hearing that people enjoyed our stuff, and we like talking about our own books. I have the brain rot for my own characters, okay? If that wasn't obvious enough by drawing them incessantly, talking about them incessantly, wanting to share them so bad, I understand. You want to hear people love your characters. You want to hear people love your characters almost as much as you, because there's no way that they could love them as much as you, probably. But at the end of the day, social media is pretty petty. And there's nothing that you can do about it. It's just a conversation. And so I think this idea, there's some level of making sure stuff's not getting spammed that you can do. But there's also some level of you can't just censor stuff that you don't like, because it's, what do you do with this? What do you do with the claims that say this person is a hater, but you can't prove whether or not they're a hater? Where people start weaponizing the take down the 1-star review claims. What do you do when you go back over to the men? I think that was over here, where there are a lot of reviews with the 4 stars and the 5 stars that said, I'm gonna rate this just to fight against the people calling her a transphobe. Like, you can weaponize 1-star reviews just as much as 5-star reviews, but people really only talk about it if it is destroying the reputation of their book, as opposed to fake reviews that are giving their book praise. Finally, there was this, I know we're talking about this forever, so you know, but there was this New York Times article called How Review Bombing Can Tank a Book Before It's Published. So, and this came out in June. So this is a conversation that's been going on for a while, ideas that have been going on for a while, which is why I present it to you, and I present it to you with all of these different scenarios of how a book gets hurt or ruined, or these conversations that are happening, and how can we actually navigate this when people use reviews and interpret reviews totally differently. And where some say it's totally fine to abuse people in this way with them, or others where you can boost your profile in this way, but in other ways it's not okay to do that. Like, how do we navigate this space? So Cecilia Rabis figured her debut novel, Everything's Fine, would spark criticism. The story centers on a young black woman working at Goldman Sachs who falls in love with a conservative white coworker with bigoted views. But she didn't expect the backlash to strike 6 months before the book was published. In January, after a Goodreads user who had received an advanced copy posted a plot summary that went viral on Twitter, the review site was flooded with negative comments and 1-star reviews, with many calling the book anti-black and racist. Some of the comments were left by users who said that they had never read the book but objected to its premise. So we've got that too, where people go, look, I just don't want this published. Cancel the deal. Cancel the deal before it's published. And we kind of see that with some of these other books where they're actually trying to take stuff down. And I think people need to stop responding to these freaking book reviews, because they're trying to control what actually gets through based on saying, look, I don't agree with this premise. Cancel it. Cancel it. We saw it with that one book that was set over the Kosovo War. We've seen that with The Blood Heir, where that was also jumped on and then changed before publication. We've seen other books canceled before publication for one reason or another, and it's just because of the response. But people are just not going to like the book, and that's fine. They're not the target audience. This is one of the things that I determined when I published, and it's just, some people are just never going to like your book. They were never going to like your book. And even making changes to that book, you're either going to not be giving the book or the story that you were trying to tell, or those people are just not going to like your book, and they'll never like your book, and they'll never like you if you constantly have to change who you are in order to please them. They don't really care about you or your story. They just want your compliance. So it's really not worth it. But also, you should generally prepare yourself for backlash of some kind if you're going to use a political idea or political framing in your book. Like, it's just going to happen. Anyway, it may look like a bunch of 1-star reviews on Goodreads, but these are broader campaigns of harassment, Rabis said. People were very keen not just to attack the work, but to attack me as well, which goes back into some of the things that I said before about attacking the author as opposed to just talking about the book or disliking the book. You kind of cross a line when you start making claims about an author, and I know so many people who believe that it's okay to weaponize book reviews, to say things about the author. Funny enough, this morning I was actually watching a video about, how do I say this? Sexual abusers who do manga. And I had no idea that the creator of Rurouni Kenshin had that kind of background. There are a lot of people that do terrible things that are not posted on their pages anywhere because people don't know or people don't care. There are a lot of people that just don't know. But then you got claims that are being placed in places, you got claims that are being placed in book review areas where people either can't see it, they don't know, there's no way to verify, and then if it's anything that comes up on Twitter, it's deleted a month later. Like, look at the freaking thing with Ann Zhao. That's all deleted now, and it was only a month ago, which is one of the things that I was like, oh, I guess I should cover this before all the other tweets get deleted. It's crazy. And I know a lot of people who believe it's totally legit to attack an author in the page because they think that other people have a right to know if that author is a bad person. And sure, you do, but there's also no way to verify what is being said. Like, I can even look at some of my book reviews on this channel and some of the comments in there where claims are made about the authors that I can't verify. There's no way to verify, and some of it is just feelings-based. There are claims that have been made about me because they don't like the way that I review things, and there's no way to verify that. It's just an emotional response and a judgment based on what is said that is disagreed with, that is then used to paint the person with this entire thing. And that gets really dangerous. In an era where reaching readers online has become a near existential problem for publishers, Goodreads has become an essential avenue for building an audience. As a cross between a social media platform and a review site like Yelp, the site has been a boon for publishers hoping to generate excitement for books. But the same features that get users talking about books and authors can also backfire. Reviews can be weaponized in some cases, derailing a book's publication long before its release. It can be incredibly hurtful, and it's frustrating that people are allowed to review books this way if they haven't read them, said Roxane Gay, an author and editor who also posts reviews on Goodreads. Worse, they're allowed to review books that haven't even been written. I have books on there being reviewed that I'm not even finished with yet. Rabis, who quit her job, which is just like, then just don't care. It doesn't mean anything. The book's not out yet. You know that they're not reviewing the book. They're talking about you, or they just don't like you. It doesn't matter. They will never like you. Rabis, who quit her job as a data scientist at Google to focus on writing after selling her novel to Simon & Schuster, worried that the online ambush might turn people against her book. I was concerned about the risk of contagion and that readers and reviewers would dismiss the work without ever really engaging with it. I felt particularly vulnerable as a debut author and as also a Black woman. Despite some accolades, her novel landed on some most anticipated books of the summer list and was a Good Morning America buzz pick. It had a sluggish start. After its June 6th release, the book sold 1,000 hardcover copies in its first 10 days, according to Circana Bookscan. Established authors have also been subjected to review bombing campaigns. Earlier this month, Elizabeth Gilbert, best-selling writer of Eat, Pray, Love, received hundreds of negative ratings on Goodreads for her forthcoming novel, The Snow Forest, which is set in Siberia in the mid-20th century. In her case, reviewers weren't attacking the book itself or even the premise, a Russian family seeking refuge in Soviet oppression in the wilderness. Critics objected to the fact that Gilbert had set the book in Russia while Russia was waging a war on Ukraine and lambasted Gilbert as insensitive to the plight of Ukrainians. Like, I get that, because I wrote Boom 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 back in 2018, 2019, and some people found it during 2020 or after 2020, and assumed that I wrote it about what was going on with Ukraine and Russia, and I also had received an award for Boom for Best Satire from the FWA, the Florida Writers Association, and one of the judges said that I was going to have to change on from being Ukrainian because that would be a problematic story to tell, and I can't. I don't work like that. I don't create the character attributes or where they're from or who they are. They knock on my brain and they tell me who they are and I just transcribe. I'm sorry. Some people don't work like that. That's how I work. I can't help you. I can't help you by changing things. Jan is just Jan, and it was intrinsic to the story that was how this, like, it is piled into his background, in the background of his family, in the way that his boss interacts with him, in the way that his family interacts with the Russians. It's important to the story. You can't just pluck that out and drop it somewhere else. Gilbert's response stunned the literary world. She swiftly responded to the critics and announced that she would postpone her book, which was slated for publication in February, from Riverhead. Riverhead hadn't even printed advanced review copies yet. Gilbert wasn't the first to delay her novel when faced with a tsunami of criticism. The young adult author Kira Drake and Amelia Wen Zhao postponed publications of their novels after facing criticism on Twitter and Goodreads that their depictions of fantasy worlds were racially insensitive. In 2019, the young adult novelist Kosako Jackson canceled his debut novel, a love story between two teen boys set in the late 1990s during the Kosovo War, after drawing withering critiques on Goodreads. In a statement, Goodreads said it takes the responsibility of maintaining the authenticity and integrity of ratings and protecting our community of readers and authors very seriously, and that it has made it easier for users to flag suspicious reviews. Goodreads also said that it has taken steps to improve the ability to detect and remove content that violates the site's community guidelines, which forbids reviews that attack authors personally, reviews that attack other reviewers, and multiple reviews by the single user that abuse the rating system. On Amazon, book reviews indicate whether or not someone has purchased the title, and Amazon typically does not allow reviews to be posted for a book that hasn't even come out yet, with some exceptions. Rotten Tomato, a movie site, says that the users leaving verified reviews must prove that they purchased the ticket, but Goodreads, which was bought by Amazon in 2013, lets any registered user review or rate a book, which, I mean, people can say that doesn't make sense, but Do you want your books in libraries? What if somebody got your book from a library? What if somebody sent you a copy of the book? If somebody purchased you the book? Like, it's a social media website first, before anything more serious. Even books that are still gestating can be reviewed. George R.R. Martin's long-awaited The Winds of Winter, the next installment in his Song of Ice and Fire series, doesn't even have an official release date, but it has amassed more than 10,800 ratings and some 500 reviews on Goodreads, which more sounds like people having a conversation about the lack of book as opposed to rating the book. It's just social media. It's unclear how Amazon uses the data generated on Goodreads, which offers insights into readers' preferences and consumer behavior. The company said that Goodreads reviews and ratings do not influence its decision on which books and how many to buy copies from publishers. Given its influence, some authors have come to think of Goodreads as a necessary evil and a minefield. Lincoln Michael, the author of sci-fi novel The Body Scout, said he fears his book might get review bombed if he tangles with people online, which is also a fear a lot of people have. So many authors fear that if they say the wrong thing, if they have the wrong opinion, if they make somebody angry, then somebody will go and one-star their book. And I've even had that happen, where a couple of years ago, I was on Minds.com and I was picking books from that website randomly. Well, not randomly necessarily. I was picking books from that website from other indie creators to either read for the launch stream or just have a good time because I wanted to find more indie books. And so I took recommendations from this guy, and some of those recommendations were other people on the website. Now, this person was very anti-mainstream. He just wanted to fight the mainstream. And so then I read the book that he suggested, and I didn't particularly like it. I gave it an honest review here on the channel. And then I get DMs from this guy telling me that you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to give it a 4 or a 5 star. We're supposed to stick together. How can we stick together if we're, how can we beat the mainstream if we're not sticking together? And I told him, I don't politicize my reviews. I try to just say what I saw, why I liked it or why I didn't like it, and that's how it is. I do not use reviews as a weapon. And previously, he had read one of my books and he had given it a 4 star. And after that interaction where he decided that he couldn't manipulate me and he couldn't control me and I wasn't going to be part of his little game, he kicked me out of the writing group on that website and then he 1-starred the book. The comment on it still says 4 star, but he did 1-star it because it's politically using these things. I've had other people in my life that had given it a higher rating, decided they didn't like me, and then lowered the rating. Do I know if that means that they initially didn't like it and they lied to me about liking it because we were friendly, or is that they lowered it because they don't like me? I don't know, but it happens all the time. And so a lot of people are scared to say anything, especially because there are some bigger reviewers out there that it's like, that's abusive behavior. I don't want to talk about that person because I don't want their ire to come on me to then drag and destroy my life work. There's so much of that happens. And then authors are called, like with J.M. Arlen, authors are called by default the more powerful position, even if they have no platform. It's definitely a place to be. As any author who is moderately in the public eye, you do always worry that if you do get into a fight with someone on Twitter about politics or sports or even a Marvel movie, some angry fans might go leave 1-star reviews in retaliation. And that can even be said that some people think that your review in general is done because you hate that person, instead of actually just reading the book and not liking it. I had that accusation lobbed at me too, specifically for His Name Was Augustine, for ISOM, sometimes for Shad's book. I just read the book. I'm sorry that I don't like them. I'm sorry that I think that they were sloppily put together. His Name Was Augustine could have been cut. The 6th book didn't need to exist. They have ideas in them. I just don't think that they were polished to where they needed to be. But some people will just assume automatically that anything that you say against their book is political. Oddly enough, they will always believe the negative is political, but not the positive. I wonder why that is. The occasional critical pile-on might not be a bad thing for Goodreads itself. As a social platform, part of the Goodreads is offering a conversation and user engagement, and controversies and debate can drive more comments and time spent on the platform. The vitriol can also fly in the opposite direction. Recently, the author Sarah Stusek posted a video on TikTok criticizing a Goodreads reviewer for leaving a 4-star review on her forthcoming novel, 3 Rivers. In the video, which was later removed because it violated the platform's community standards, Stusek Stusek berated the reviewer for ruining her 5-star average after the Goodreads user amended her review to note that the author was attacking her. Fellow Goodreads members rose to her defense and flooded Three Rivers with around 600 one-star reviews. Stusek's publisher, Spark Press, announced on Twitter that it was parting ways with the author and the novel, which was going to be published in September, disappearing from the publisher's website. Stusek said in an email that her video was intended to be a joke and that she was planning to self-publish the novel in the fall. More often, though, the negative spiral is set off by readers. When Gretchen Felker-Martin sold her debut novel Manhunt about trans women trying to survive in a world where a virus is spreading among people with higher levels of testosterone, she knew that she knew some would find the horror story distasteful, but she was blindsided by what felt like an organized campaign of review bombs on Goodreads, she said. Well, isn't that ironic? You know what? Let's go. Gretchen, let's go. Oh, 3.57. That's pretty average. That's pretty average. 5. Of course, Roxane Gay is in there. Oh, I'm sorry. I hated Roxane Gay's book. I read I was forced to read Bad Feminist for my graduate program. No. It was bad. I'm not seeing a review bomb here. Updating my review because actually after looking at the author's Twitter, I take it back. I wouldn't read anything else by someone who posted someone's negative review to mock, disparagingly referred to AFAB non-binary authors as Thabies. It's cool that this is pitched as a corrective to the canon gender-plagued novels, although it is not taking ALM at stuff like, it's not taking aim at stuff like Harland or The Female Man, so much as basically Y the Last Man. I mean, I think that's why The Men got it, because The Men was also Y the Last Man. I'm not seeing the review bombing, but, you know, I'm comparing it to what happened to Newman, and maybe Gretchen did have it, and it cleared itself up after, you know, more stuff happened, but that looks pretty fair. That looks pretty fair. People who objected to the novel's premise went ballistic and bombarded the thing with hundreds and hundreds of negative reviews before anyone had read it, she said. Felker-Martin, who is transgender, said that she asked Goodreads to remove some of the more personal attacks and asked friends to report hateful comments, but never got a response, although a couple reviews were taken down. So this is another thing that comes into what I was saying earlier, is how do you know when this stuff is actually being critical or harassment in a way that should be taken down, because there are so many reviews that are obviously harassment, that are personal, that are not taken down. So how do you know that this is not being weaponized by other people? It's going to be. It's going to be like the DMCA takedowns. I don't think Goodreads has an economic incentive to be any better, she said. It would be a gargantuan job to significantly monitor the kinds of abuses that are being heaped onto people every single day, but there's a certainly some middle ground between breaking your back trying to deal with it all and dealing with none of it. I mean, they would have to kind of guess at who is being honest, who is not being honest, both between authors and readers, and I think a lot of people would stop using the website if they just couldn't have the discussions that they're having. And for some, yeah, it's a waste of time. For some, there's no point in talking to other people on the website. I personally use it just to monitor what I'm reading and to mark off when I've read something or when I haven't read something, or to create my TBR. That's all that I use it for. I don't converse with people on it. And a random final thought that I wanted to add from the editing floor is that there is a sense of entitlement that comes with some of this review culture as well. So going back to the Meg Latour situation, there are people that have said that she deserves to pay. Pay for what at this point? She wrote a bad book. That's all. Every author in every universe ever has written a bad book at some point in their life. It's been years now. It's over. What is the accountability to be had there? Her book is not doing well. It's low rated. She hasn't released again. What more is there? But then you've got these situations like people saying you need to be held accountable for the way that you responded to that review. And usually that implies like ending somebody's career, kind of like the JMRN situation where it's just over. But at what point are you being entitled to having a response to that person? Because there have been so many situations, and yeah, people do bad things. or people say things that you don't like. You can look at J.M. Buckler, I think it was, that also got dragged on social media and Goodreads for something or another that was difficult to find other than random accusations of racism, and people saying that she needed to suffer for it. She needed to be held accountable, and if she just said, hey, I don't really care about this, then it's suddenly, oh, she can't accept criticism. People can choose whether or not to listen to the mob that is coming at them. They can choose to say that no, anybody that they don't know personally doesn't really matter. I put out my book reviews not for the authors of anything that I read, but for other people either interested in the works or interested in talking about the books. I also mostly do it for myself. I talk about the books that I'm reading so that I can share what I'm reading one way or another, so that I can walk through anybody that wants to hear what it is that I experienced. And maybe if you also read the book, then maybe you'll find comfort in finding somebody else who had something similar to say, or it'll maybe help you on your journey as a writer if you kind of see how some things can be taken. But my opinion is never the opinion, and I don't expect anybody to change for anything that I have to say. Even this video, I don't expect anybody to really listen. I just wanted to bring it up for discussion because I'm seeing some things. And you know, when you see things, you kind of want to say something because you're like, I don't know what to do with this. I just don't know what to do with this. But there is no requirement of anybody at any time to listen to somebody insulting them, berating them, or telling them to act better. I've had a couple of people contact me individually and try to correct my behavior or go, I don't like your opinions. Let me correct your opinion on that. I mean, you can tell me, but I don't owe it to anybody to, one, listen to your critiques, and then two, take your critiques seriously. I can choose it however I want, and then you can choose to judge me and associate or disassociate with me depending on how I respond to that, or if I make the changes that you want or whatnot. It's a personal thing, but I think that there's just this really weird undercurrent involved in this review culture that is, no, I'm going to tell you what I think is wrong with you, and you're going to listen, and if you don't listen and you don't adjust based on what I have said, then you are a terrible person, so now I am going to dogpile on you about how terrible of a person you are because you are not the person that I want you to be, or that I tell you to be. It's very bizarre, and maybe it doesn't happen as much as it feels like it, but I'm just putting that recognition out there that that is what I have seen. And so you could tell me in the comments if you've seen that too. Also, the response of, I don't like the idea of your book, so I'm going to 1-star it and hope that it gets canceled, should really just be ignored. Like, they don't like you, they don't like your story, it doesn't matter. Their opinion doesn't matter. They are not your target audience, and they do not have you or your story at heart or in mind. So that really should not be given any second thought. But it looks like a lot of people give that kind of comment a lot of thought. Don't let them control you. That's kind of it. Like, there is a selection of different ways in which Goodreads reviews are weaponized against people, the conversation for it, the how it can ruin your book before your book is even published situation. I think the solve is just to not take Goodreads all that seriously, to not panic when you see something happening like that to your book. Just don't say anything. It can be really, really hard. Most of the time, I don't know what the solution is here when people want to ruin your life, when people decide they don't like you, and people maliciously choose to go out to hurt you or to take what you have or to try to ruin what you're trying to accomplish. And I don't know what you do when people assume that all of the negative reviews are fake, but the 5-star reviews that say nothing about anything are absolutely not fake. Like, it's just a situation. Personally, we all come up with our own methods of how we gauge whether we're going to read a book, if we're going to trust reviews or not. For me, I don't really use book reviews to sell me a book. I use book reviews to supplement conversation after I've finished the book, because I want to know how other people experienced what I experienced and interpret it. And so then usually I'm looking for more detail, and a lot of reviews don't actually have the details that I'm looking for when I read them. With everybody focusing so much on the Kate Corain thing, I just wanted to bring up this conversation that shows these various things instead of just like dogpiling on this one person. I wanted to talk about just the culture of it all in general, and then throw it to you guys for your thoughts on all of this, on any of this. It's scary for a lot of authors. I don't even know how many comments this video is going to get because it's a scary thing to talk about, but if you want to say something, you know, feel free, say so in the comments below. I've obviously got my opinions that is just like, I mean, it sucks to have people say they don't like your work, to say that it is nasty, to misrepresent it, because it feels like they're lying, but sometimes people just interpret your book differently. Often people interpret your book differently, and it's just how it goes. Coping is a learned skill, and it is not an easy one to get. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. With that said, have a great weekend, Merry Christmas, and don't die. Hello, boomers! My name is Yanananana. How are you feeling today? In case you didn't know, I'm a YouTuber from Nide, a small town in eastern Ukraine. My family has never really understood what I do in the woods, but all I've ever wanted is to make a better life for us all. Papa always comes home from the mines dirty, angry, and tired. It's a necessary evil to do your job and be in a place that you don't want to be. But I've never wanted to spend my life doing exactly what was necessary of me. Everything changed for me when a couple of Americans appeared at my door. They said they wanted to sponsor my channel and handed me military-grade explosives. Can you believe it? Military-grade. The lights will be incredible going forward. With this help, my videos will be next level. I just hope they are as they say, and this isn't some kind of trick. I mean, what would there be to gain? Boris says people are simple. Everything comes down to money and power. And Alex tells me ignorance will not save me from trouble. I understand where they are coming from, but I do not like to think that way. There is more to life than a cruel of superficial goods, hatred, and destruction. Anyway, I do not like where this video is going, so I will see you on the explosives field. Boom, boom, boom. Salute.